Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me. If you're watching this, I appreciate it. For a lot of my subscribers, it's probably the first time you've heard me talk about this subject. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of background information about myself. I spent almost 15 years of my life as a militant atheist, and I'm standing before you today telling you that there is a creator, and all of your logical observations from yourself, without appealing to an authority, should tell you that the earth is flat, stationary, immovable, enclosed, and was created by something much more powerful than ourselves. I'm not one of these people that are going to sit here and tell you that I can prove definitively that the earth is flat. But I will, however, tell you I can prove unequivocally that it is not a spinning ball flying through space. Now, I'm beyond trying to prove anything to anybody. I'm only sitting here offering you my perspective on the situation and how I've seen things develop since I got involved in this pursuit of the truth. A lot of people get hung up on the why. Now, the why here is very easy to understand. If people want to put it into an analogy, imagine you take a lion and you put him into a small cage. They go absolutely crazy. Now, the same thing happens to a human being. You put them in a small cage and they go absolutely crazy. You see it in prison all the time, right? Now, the difference between the human and the lion is, if you take the lion and you put him in a giant savanna with walls all the way around it, what happens when the lion comes up to one of the walls? The lion might be interested for a minute or two, but let's just say the lion can't dig over it, the lion can't dig under it, the lion can't climb over it, and there's no way for the lion to ever get through that wall. Eventually, the lion will lose interest, turn around and go back to the savannah, and walk for 10,000 acres till he bumps against another wall, and then he's going to turn around and do the same thing. As long as he can sustain himself inside that environment, he's not really going to care whether that wall is there or not. Now, if you take a human and you put the human in the same situation, even though the human can't get under, over, or through this wall, eventually the human is going to become obsessed as to why that wall is there. Who built this wall? What's on the other side of the wall? What's this wall made out of? Now, this goes on ad nauseum until the human ultimately decides, hey, I'm going to get myself through this wall. Now, if you want to keep going on this whole path of we're in an enclosed system, what starts to make a lot more sense is the Bible verses pertaining to the Tower of Babel. Now, a lot of people like to think of the Bible as a book of mythology, and that's not what it was. I don't care what anybody has to say. The people that wrote the Bible were not writing it as an analogy. It was an account of history, and after many, many years of research, I've come to a conclusion that most of what's in the Bible should be taken literally, if not all of it. And when it shouldn't be taken literally, the Bible tells you exactly what is analogy and allegory and mythology. It comes right out and says, this didn't happen. I'm telling you this because it pertains to what is happening. And when you start looking at it from that perspective, all of these stories about our past point to the fact that the earth is flat, stationary, and immovable. Because the Tower of Babel, my friends, is that exact scenario I just described about the human walking up to a wall and becoming fascinated by it. Now, let's just think about things logically for a second and assume that the earth is a spinning ball flying through space, right? Why on God's green earth would a civilization as advanced as that can build a tower into the atmosphere that tall with that many people over a foundation of a mile wide, because remnants of this tower have been found, and the foundation itself was over a square mile, So these people had extraordinary technology, and they were building an extraordinary building. So they understood the principles of the environment they were working within very well. Why on God's green earth would they build a tower like this on a ball that's spinning 1,000 miles an hour to reach the footstool of God, which even if they could build this tower to reach it, it would pass that footstool at 1,000 miles an hour. And let's not even talk about the frictional forces with the jet stream and all this other stuff that tower would have encountered. So I'm just saying, beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you take that story literally, as it should be taken, there's no way in hell that those people were building on a round, spinning ball flying through space. Let's just take the Bible out of the equation for a second here and just take things from a logical first-person perspective on how you see the world every single day. If you were never taught that the earth is a spinning ball, what would your eyes, ears, and body tell you? Think about this for a minute. Just think about it. If you were never told that you lived on a spinning ball, what would you think you live on? You go to the Bonneville Salt Flats, for example, and you look out and you can see a perfect mirrored image from the sky for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. I'm just telling you right now, on a surface like that, you should see some curvature, especially with it magnifying everything. For example, there's mirrors out there that you see people have on light poles as they're backing out of their driveway that are curved, right? The Bonneville Salt Flats effectively would do the same exact thing, in turn distorting the sky that was reflecting off of it and clearly showing that the earth itself had a curvature. I don't care how minute the curvature is from the ground in comparison to our relative size to the earth, you would see, beyond a shadow of a doubt, distortion pointing to the fact that we live on a spinning ball, but we don't. We just don't. You would not have infrared technology taking pictures, albeit at heights of like 90,000 feet. However, they're taking pictures at distances of over 500 miles. That's not possible on a ball that's curved 8 inches per mile squared. On top of that, this same infrared technology and thermal technology is being used to take pictures of the moon. And a lot of anomalies are starting to show up as far as the moon is concerned. Did you know if you take a thermal picture of the moon when it's in its waxing or waning cycle, and you compare the side that's covered by shadow to the side that's not covered by shadow, you can clearly see that the side that's illuminated is displaying all the properties you think that it should be when you're looking at it through a thermal camera, right? However, when you look at the opposite side that's covered by a shadow, you see absolutely nothing registering on this camera at all, absolutely no temperature, nothing. It's as though there is absolutely nothing there. If there was something in between us and the moon causing that shadow, it should have some sort of temperature. It should appear on this thermal camera. However, it doesn't. And not only that, let's just think about how a thermal camera works for a minute. How are we taking pictures of the moon that's 250,000 miles away with thermal cameras? That doesn't make any sense at all. Absolutely no sense. Let's take this one step further. How are we managing to zoom in onto the moon and see the features that we see at 250,000 miles with the P900 and P1000, for example? This makes absolutely no sense at all, especially when you think about how hard it is to make those cameras focus on objects that are a lot closer to you on Earth. Doesn't make any sense at all. Now, to get away from these proofs that the Earth aren't a spinning ball, I also want to point out the simple fact that all of these people who are going to come in here and comment that I don't know what I'm talking about, that I'm absolutely crazy, that gravity explains the Earth is not flat, etc., etc., you don't understand the model that you believe in. You simply don't. What you don't understand is gravity, right? Well, take gravity for example. Gravity is nothing more than a word that we've used to explain a force that we don't understand. All we know is that when you drop something, it falls, correct? There's no debating that. We see it every day with our own two eyes. And people like to say that's gravity. Well, what I'm telling you is, yes, you can call it gravity, but you have no idea what's causing that force. At least not as much of an idea as you think you do, because you're not applying logic to it and you're depending on other men to give you the answer. Well, if you want to believe in the mainstream theory of gravity, you're going to run into a little bit of a problem. Scientists pick and choose which type of gravity they want to attribute during their equations based on which suits them best. So there's two main theories of gravity. You have Newtonian gravity and Einsteinian gravity, and both of them are explained by completely different mathematics, okay? And scientists pick and choose which theory they want to use based on how it best suits their equations. Well, what I'm telling you right now is you cannot have two running theories that describe the same force with opposite mathematics working together to support the same model. Makes absolutely no sense at all. Absolutely none. Especially not when you can sit back and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that density and buoyancy describe gravity to a T. And anybody not willing to admit that hasn't opened their eyes and done the research. I'm so sick of hearing that. I don't know what I'm talking about when I've spent years looking into this. And I totally understand where you're coming from. Like, I've gone through this experience myself where I woke up and said, there's no fucking way that the Earth is flat. Absolutely no way. There's no way in hell. Well, guess what? You cannot prove to me that it's a spinning ball. All you have is an appeal to authority. All you have is pointing to scientists, right? While at the same time you mock me for believing the writers of the Bible. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia summed it up very well when Mac made the argument that science is nothing more than religion dressed up by lab coats. Because you make fun of me for believing a book written by men that I will never meet. And I take that on faith as truth. Well, I'm going to throw that right back in your face and I'm going to add something to it. If you believe in the spinning ball, it's because you believe a bunch of men in lab coats based on books and mathematics that you do not understand, based on a fundamental foundation of lies. Because math, like all languages, can describe absolutely anything given enough time and effort. However, that does not make it reality by any means. Now, all of your science for the heliocentric model is based on the presupposition of the Earth being a spinning ball with absolutely no experimentation that I can do to verify the Earth actually has a radius or a curvature. But all of your mathematics use those two numbers, but you've never proven that those two numbers are accurate by any means. By any means. So don't sit here and tell me that I'm crazy, because I know I'm not. I know that I've spent my time researching enough to know I can't prove that it's a spinning ball. So now I'm going to ask you to prove to me that it is, because until you do, I'm going to sit here and keep spreading my word, but I'm not going to be one of these people that are telling you that the Earth is flat, because I don't think anybody really knows what's going on when he referred to the Earth as a realm. If you look at the moon and the sun and the way that they actually operate, they act a lot like transistors. And on top of that, if you observe stars through a telescope, they look an awful lot like lens flares through water. Now, this may sound a little bit crazy, but let's take this one step further and assume everything around us is an electrical system, which is ultimately what Tesla believed. Now, if you assume this is the case, that would mean we're all interacting with everything around us based on an energetic level, based on our vibration, based on our patterns, based on our thoughts, etc., etc. Now, this points to something very scary in my opinion, and it doesn't point to a flat earth per se. Yes, we may perceive the realm we live in as flat, but that doesn't make it physical at all. This entire world probably isn't physical at all. If you look at some of the discoveries that have been made about how we observe the universe lately, we've come to the conclusion that there's a lot of code written into the natural world that doesn't only resemble how we program computers, it matches it perfectly to the point where even the binary that's available for us to see and how the stars are moving and everything, even the binary has the same exact error correcting code we use for the internet. So let's say you're downloading a file from somebody else's ISP or whatever, and you drop a couple packets of information. The computer automatically has a program that guesses what those packets were supposed to be and replaces them based on algorithms because it knows what's most probably supposed to be there to complete that code because it's seen so much of it, right? Well, the same exact programming has been put into our universe, and we can see this very clearly by observing all of the data. Now, what this points to is the fact that this entire realm we're seeing has been engineered and programmed by something, ultimately leading to the simulation theory. Now, what makes this even more obvious to me that this is probably the reality we're living in is if you look at every video game that's ever been designed in an open world, right? We're talking Red Dead Redemption, GTA, Skyrim, any sort of game like this. Did they program that game to be round or flat? Are you playing on a round or flat surface when you're in that world? Just answer that question real quick. Because I bet you don't even realize it, but you have never played a video game where they have programmed the world around you to curve. And do you know what? Every video game you play from first-person perspective, if designed well enough, matches the reality around you perfectly. But us as humans are too stupid to realize this because we've been programmed not to think about it. It's just mind-boggling when you really step back to think about how obvious everything really is and how easy it's been to control the entire world into not believing it. Like, you can see it every day with your own two eyes, but you're never going to wake up to it until you realize you've been programmed, until you can admit that you don't know everything. You only know what you've been taught, and what you've been taught is bullshit. It's been designed to brainwash you. And I'm a rather intelligent person, man, and I was led astray from the time I was tiny. It all starts when your parents tell you that Santa's real, because what they're doing is they're programming you to fall into this paradigm of believing it's okay for the world around you to lie to you. But not only that, it preconditions you that it's okay for the world to lie to you in order to gain control over your behavior. Your parents are the ones that are doing this to you, and they don't even realize it. They've been programmed to carry on with this like it's absolutely nothing. It indoctrinates you into a system of deceit. 1 second. No, don't even get me started about the school systems. And the teachers don't even realize that they're playing into it. It's absolutely sickening. These teachers don't know what the hell they're teaching. They teach out of a book that was designed by Jesuits and Germans in order to brainwash their children. And not only that, they're the ones that developed this entire globe deception from the ground up. Galileo and all those guys were nothing more than a distraction to introduce this theory. It's the Hegelian dialectic at its finest, right? You take two scenarios, neither of which are true. The flat earth is one of them, right? And then the globe. And you make people fight between each other as to which one is accurate, when neither one really is. But if you can manage to keep people on one side and make all the evidence obvious while at the same time offering another scenario that isn't true, you ultimately blind everybody to the truth and you offer the solution to them. Our schools are indoctrinating our children to believe anything they read on paper, and history has been manipulated from the very beginning. If you're going to sit here and tell me you believe that the earth is billions and billions and billions of years old, you haven't done any research at all. And if you're going to sit here and tell me scientists don't have a bias and an agenda and they don't lie to you, you haven't paid attention to what's going on. Let's take evolution for an example. You want to sit here and tell me that scientists wake up in the morning hoping that their friends and their colleagues disprove what they've put out there? That's absolute nonsense and folly. Because I'm telling you right now that if you come out against the mainstream narrative, you're not going to get published, you're not going to get peer reviewed, and you're going to lose every bit of funding that you have. Evolution is a prime example of scientists lying for decades and decades in order to deceive the public and push godlessness upon your children. So what they did is they pushed the missing link theory as hard as they possibly could, and then they had somebody go out and take 8 bones or whatever and file away at all of the jawline, etc., and all of that, and come up with the missing link. Right? Well, it turns out that once this specimen was put under examination, it was completely fraudulent. And this, like I said, is a prime example as to how science is used to manipulate the masses. Because yes, even though they retracted that information and they said they were wrong and all of this, they conditioned an entire generation, if not 2 generations of people, to believe in evolution. And to this day, we're still fighting an uphill battle when it comes to disproving a theory that is absolute nonsense. And it can be proven nonsense just by looking at the human genome and how human DNA works. What most people fail to realize is, if you look at the human genome and how human DNA reproduces and the lifespan that the human DNA, like the life cycle of human DNA, the human body as it is right now and how it is progressing and the degradation of our DNA means us as humans will only be able to reproduce for about another 5,000 years before DNA has become so corrupt over time that we can no longer reproduce. Now, if you take these same numbers and statistics and you look at how the degradation is going to take place in the future and you apply it in the reverse, it points to the earth being about exactly how old they say it is in the Bible. About 9,000 years old. 6 to 9,000. Somewhere in that range. Now, there's a bunch of other evidence pointing to the fact that our timeline is not what they say it is. And it's very concrete. A lot of people like to say that dinosaurs weren't real. Well, I'm telling you right now, they were. And not only were they real, they probably walked alongside humans at one point. They have found human footprints. The people becoming gay, right? People becoming gay, transgenderism, and all of this is Agenda Agenda 2020 and Agenda 31. It's been engineered since the destruction of the Fed in 1913, and it's a complete Luciferian push. It's the bafflement incarnated in daily society. Most people don't realize that we practice occult holidays and occult religion all the time, and we don't realize that our kids are being indoctrinated into this shit. Sexual education is being taught in class that shouldn't be taught. They're teaching kids how to have gay sex. They're promoting transgenderism at school. They're putting 11-year-olds in drag on Good Morning America, having them online talking about frickin' ketamine and sniffing all kinds of shit. Like, the world we're living in is absolutely disgusting, and it's been programmed that way. It's been programmed. Enough people are starting to wake up where we're moving in the right direction, but people becoming gay is nothing new. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything that's happened shall happen again before the end. This is exactly what the Bible tells you was going to happen. Look at Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a prime example of what's going on right now in the United States. A prime example of it. You have two separate cultures living side by side, and one of them can't stick around because they're the complete antithesis of each other. There's going to be a standoff at some point, and that's what they want, right? Like I said, Hegelian dialectic. Now, with the entire timeline being as messed up as it really is, and people not realizing it, it points to the biggest deception of all, and that's not the flat earth, because it's not. In the end, as long as you realize that you were created and you are the center of everything, it doesn't matter whether we live on a physical body or it's a simulation and we're nothing more than a program. What matters is we're here for a purpose, right? And it ultimately makes you have to dismiss the fact that space is not real, okay? And if space isn't real, everything they have ever taught you as far as extraterrestrial life is absolute nonsense, and you have to throw it out the window, right? You just have to. If you can see beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's footprints of human beings right next to the footprints of dinosaurs, then you have to take the next logical step and admit, hey, the timeline's absolute bullshit. So if the Earth isn't billions of years old, then the universe couldn't have developed how they told us it did. If there's viable DNA inside of dinosaur bones, right, then human history is not what they've told us. Dinosaurs aren't as old as they are, and we walked side by side with them, okay? And by touching on consciousness, you're 100% moving in the right direction, because what they've made everybody think is that our thoughts mean nothing, when in fact, our thoughts and energy feed absolutely everything. And as I've told you before in my last video, when we celebrate our holidays today, right, it's all based on astrology and what celestial bodies above our head are there. And when we celebrate these holidays, we put our energy into these luminaries, giving power to an opposite energy force we should be, right? Now, if you take this one step further, they want to tell us aliens are coming, aliens are coming, aliens are coming. Well, if you take what I've told you and you apply the logic I've told you to apply about the Earth only being about 6,000 years old and outer space not being what they say it is, there's only one logical conclusion. They believe aliens exist. They believe in Lucifer and they admit it. So if they have these beliefs that are contradictory, they have to tie together. And if you think about it, everything they've ever told us is an absolute lie. So why would aliens be the same, be any different? Why would they tell us the truth about it? Now, something you have to take into account is these people have to tell you the truth to a certain degree, or they can't carry on doing what they're doing. Like, it has to be consensual. It has to. According to the way this system was set up, we have to know what's coming before it does. So they disguise it with this alien deception, and they make you believe that aliens are real, when in fact, aliens may very well be real, but they aren't what we believe they are. They're more than likely demons, okay? And you're 100% right when Globers don't use logic. They just don't. Because it took me like a year to come out of my denial. But what people need to realize is, like, the flat earth wouldn't be around for 4 years and just wouldn't. It should have gotten shut down right away. Like, we have to have something. We have to be moving on the right course. But anybody that tells you that they can prove the earth is flat is full of shit. No, aliens aren't from outer space, man. Okay, so there's two competing theories here. Is that they're interdimensional spiritual beings, right? Or we live on an infinite plane. I don't know which one to believe. I've read the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch clearly states that they're interdimensional beings and that there's a boundary to this system, that it's an enclosed system. And I'm going to tend to believe that it has to be enclosed. It has to. Every mythology, every religion, every historical account from all of the ancient cultures tell us that we live inside of an enclosed system. All my observations tell me we live inside an enclosed system. And this is the biggest globe-smashing proof ever, okay? What if NASA is... Nah, they're not planning to come clean about shit, man. They're gonna milk that for as much money as they can, $52 million a day. They ain't coming clean about nothing. Absolutely nothing, unless somebody forces them to. I mean, I don't know. NASA's an absolute joke. But as far as the biggest globe-smashing proof, like, even NASA has no logical explanation for this, is the Earth itself, they say, has an atmosphere. Well, how do you explain an atmosphere being attached to a spinning ball next to the vacuum of space? Like, if you believe that, that's fine, but offer me an experiment where I can take a sphere inside of my garage, attach an atmosphere to it, and then take that ball, put it into a vacuum chamber, suck away all of the air around that ball without disturbing the atmosphere on it. You can't fucking do it. You just can't. So until somebody's willing to offer me an experiment that proves you can have an atmosphere next to a vacuum without a barrier between the two, globe is smashed. Absolutely smashed. And you know what? Best scientists can't. So as far as saying the Earth is a petri dish, you're right. You're 100% correct in that. Now, that ultimately leads you to the question of, does God really give a fuck what happens? And by God, I mean our Creator. Like, this takes me back to the simulation theory, and it makes me think, what are the odds that we're the only civilization that's going on right now? And when you start taking into account, not civilization, but existence, right? And when you start taking into account phenomena like the Mandela effect, which I believe is directly tied to what's going on as far as the flat earth wake up and everybody's starting to raise their vibration, right? How all of a sudden are we starting to get imprints from a reality that none of us have ever experienced before? And I don't want anybody to sit here and tell me that the Mandela effect's complete nonsense, because it's not. It's just not. I've seen way too many personal things that there's no explaining. When you wake up one morning and your favorite cereal is no longer spelled the way you remember it being spelled, or your favorite car logo, and your favorite car logo is changed, you can't ignore it. I think you're wrong in saying we're the only conscious beings, okay? I believe that There's beings that are conscious of what's going on, but they don't have free will. What makes us unique, and the Bible talks about this after Adam and Eve are kicked out of Eden, that their job was to look after the troglodytes, right? They were put amongst a different civilization, and their job was to watch over it. Now, troglodytes, most modern people would refer to them as Neanderthals, right? Now, the difference between human beings and them is we have souls. We have a tie to the Creator, okay? And that is the ultimate difference. Not everything has a soul, okay? And I don't even think all people have souls. I think there's only a select few of us that are ever going to wake up to the deception that's been going on, because not everybody's capable of it. Not everybody has a tie to the Creator. The Book of Life talks about it, the 144,000, right? And I don't know, it just makes a lot of sense to me, especially when you start looking at how a lot of the people in your lives that affect you negatively work on a pattern system. It's almost as though every time you interact with them, the same outcome happens no matter what you try to do. And there's no denying that there's a certain degree of programming there. I mean, have you ever ran into somebody who just pushes every single one of your buttons as though they know exactly how to piss you off, and they know exactly how to get you going, and no matter how much you try to get through to them, they just ignore it? And I'm a logical enough person to realize that I should be able to get through to these people. I'm in Massachusetts doing my paper route. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. It makes sense, but it really doesn't. It almost seems as though some of these people are programmed just to interact with you and then continue living a meaningless drone life. Like, I don't get it. I just don't, by any means. But I think I'm gonna leave things here. I appreciate you sticking around. I don't know. I hope this gives a little bit of insight as to where my mind's at for some people. I just wanted to get online and run my mouth for a little bit. The morning digest will be coming up shortly, probably in 45 minutes to an hour. Not quite sure what I'm going to talk about yet, but we'll figure it out. There's definitely NPCs out there, man. Non-player characters for sure. I don't know, I'm pretty sure that I have quite a few in my own family. And what I've found that a lot of these people have in common is they're diagnosed with certain disorders like manic depression or bipolar and shit like this, right? And I've seen it in my mom enough times to know that there's certain things I can do now to just dissolve the situation. You give people the ability to trigger you, right? So they're playing their role, in my opinion, and their job is to get you to a place that you don't want to be. Now what you have to do is recognize the tactics they're using to do it, right? And my mom, she's one of them people that always compares me to my father, and she knows that fucking triggers the hell out of me, right? Why would your mom do that to you over and over again your entire life after you've told her 1,000 times not to do it? Unless you were trying to be distracted from doing something you were supposed to be doing. And I've noticed this a lot, especially since I've started pushing the truth and trying to figure stuff out on my own, that certain people in my life will do everything they possibly can to derail me from looking into what I'm looking into, to the point where they're starting to do the same things almost in the same exact way, and they're not communicating with each other as to how they're going to do it. So, as far as NPCs are concerned, most definitely. Most definitely. I think it's more of a hive mind effect, too. Like, it might very well be an entity that's controlling all of these people. And I don't know, it adapts over time as well. All I know is if you're looking into the truth, man, you're going to get kicked in the balls by society, and there's a reason for it. Whether it's brainwashing and programming of the masses, or there's actually NPCs out there, I don't know. It would just make sense to me that there is NPCs out there, because what's the sense in programming 9.2 billion people when a bunch of them die every single day? And it just seems like more effort than would be needed. Oh, demons are definitely real, man. You see them every single day. I interact with them on a daily basis. Sadly, I've invited that, though. There's no way around that. I mean, when you start targeting them and you start waging warfare against what they've been doing, you're gonna get targeted. There's just no way around that. And if you're not, it's probably because you're serving their interests in one manner or another. Like, it's just how it breaks down, man. But have a good day, guys. I'll be back on in a little bit.